Just in tonight, a Wisconsin jury has found a judge guilty of helping a Mexican immigrant dodge federal authorities. Federal prosecutors charged Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan with obstruction back in April. According to court documents, Dugan learned that federal agents were outside her courtroom waiting for a 31-year-old man who had re-entered the U.S. illegally. Documents say she falsely told them their warrant was not sufficient and then helped the man leave through a private door. Dugan faces up to 5 years in prison.
11 months into President Trump's historic second term, and we finally got a guilty verdict for a rogue activist judge. And it promises to be just the beginning. We're going to see the latest on the shock verdict coming from a Milwaukee jury, and it's finally happening. We got the latest on the Maryland man, the Maryland father, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. You are not going to want to miss the latest on what's happening to him. Greetings, everyone. It is a live stream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, celebrating what you made possible back on November the 5th. So if you want a front row seat on how you continue to change the world in ways you never even imagined, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You're not going to want to miss a single episode. As always, we got a jam-packed show for you today. Our super chats are up, so feel free to send in your comments or your questions. It'll be my privilege to read them and answer them during this live stream. Also, I do want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that's our amazing friends over at Augusta Gold. Now, have you seen the price of gold and silver lately? Yep. They're absolutely skyrocketing. Gold in particular is up 50% year to date, and silver is up 100%. And what's so key here is that this isn't coincidence. It's the direct result of President Trump's golden age pro-growth agenda. Goldman Sachs actually just raised their 2026 gold outlook to $4,900 per ounce. Many analysts think they're being too conservative. And to make it even better, we got 3 more years of these America First policies ahead of us. So that's exactly why smart Americans are taking control of their retirement accounts by backing them with physical gold and silver. My friends over at Augusta Precious Metals are so excited to help you be a part of this new gold rush. Augusta works with Americans who have over $50,000 in their IRAs or their 401ks or other retirement accounts to make this smart move into smart money. They're patriots just like you and me, and they would love to chat. Give them a call at 844-763-3908 or text my last name, Turley, to 35052. Text Turley to 35052. Seriously, gang, this is the time. Central banks around the world are stocking up on gold and silver as we speak. Let the patriots over at Augusta Precious Metals make sure you don't miss out. Text Turley to 35052 or click on the link below. Go to turleygold.com and you'll get instant access to a free 2-minute report that reveals the greatest threat to your retirement today. Again, that's turleygold.com or text Turley to 35052 and talk with our good friends over at Augusta Gold today. All right. Let me begin by asking you a very, very simple question, but it's quite profound. What is the one thing, the single absolute requirement for a judge sitting on the bench? As it turns out, it's not a law degree. You can actually theoretically pass the bar without going to law school. It's not even a gavel. It's not a gown or robe. What is the one single absolute requirement, the ultimate qualification for a judge to sit on the bench? Is it not the fundamental commitment to uphold the law? Otherwise, why on earth would you have a judge? What would be the basis for the fair adjudication? Right? When you watch a sporting event, it doesn't matter what, an NFL game, a baseball game, F1 race, right? Whatever it is, what is the single absolute requirement for every one of those referees and umpires officiating the game? It is the absolute, again, no absolute, right? Without exception, unwavering, unqualified commitment to upholding the rules fairly with integrity. Why? Because without the rules, you don't have the game. Think it through. Without the rules, you don't have the game. The game collapses. The game is literally comprised by rules. I don't care what game it is, football, baseball, basketball. Actually, the very way we differentiate between those different sports is by virtue of their different rules. Without the rules and without officials enforcing the rules, you don't have the game. The game collapses. That's why we love rules, by the way. Rules, in a flourishing society, rules don't stifle. They don't constrict. They free. In the words of the immortal G.K. Chesterton, law and order allow for good things to run wild. Isn't that beautiful? Law and order allow for good things to run wild. But what happens when the person wearing the judicial robe decides that their politics, their far left, woke, progressive politics, are more important than the federal law they swore to enforce? Seriously, what happens when a rogue judge doesn't just make a bad ruling, but actively becomes a criminal accomplice from the bench? We're not talking about a bad call here, right? That happens all the time. Humans are fallible. We're not talking about bad judgment. We're talking about literally no judgment at all. We're talking about a sitting judge running interference for a violent criminal to help him escape federal agents in her own courthouse. We're talking about literally a judicial coup. We're talking about juridical corruption. And what does corruption always end up doing? Always. It corrupts. Corruption always corrupts. If law and order allow for good things to run wild, corruption and deception destroy and tear down. It's the difference between truth and lies. Right? What's the old saying? The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is what? For good men to do nothing. For men of law and order to surrender. That's what makes them good. Ever since President Trump was sworn into office on January 20th, precisely because of what you did on November the 5th, we have encountered what's often referred to as rogue judges at an unprecedented rate. Now, a rogue judge, simply put, is a jurist who abandons constitutional interpretation in favor of political activism, exceeding their jurisdictional limits to issue nationwide injunctions that effectively dictate federal policy from a single district court. For the last 11 months, we've seen judge after judge after judge sitting behind their otherwise irrelevant, inconsequential desks in some podunk district routinely block presidential national executive orders on immigration and security by asserting their own policy preferences over the president's nationwide authority. Perhaps most infamously, Judge James Boasberg, right? He's the same Obama-appointed judge who oversaw the FISA court that spied on Trump's 2016 campaign. He's the same Obama-appointed judge that authorized Arctic Frost, which was a secret operation where the FBI obtained access to the phone records and the locations of a number of Republican senators. Yeah, that Judge Boasberg, true to form, back in March, he issued a court order to turn deportation planes around in mid-flight. Do you remember this? These were planes full of Tren de Aragua gang members heading to El Salvador. Boasberg actually had the gall to order the planes in mid-flight to turn around and bring these TDA gang members who are here illegally back into the country they should not be in the first place. And the Trump administration told him to, frankly, eat shit, stuff it. And then Boasberg tried to hold the Trump administration in contempt until he got slapped down by an appellate court. Now he's just butt of old jokes. But this is all par for the course. Since Trump took office, activist groups have filed over 160 lawsuits and obtained more injunctions in weeks than Biden faced in his entire term. And these rogue rulings has served as the fodder for the far-left activists disguised as journalists in the legacy media, right? You don't just have far-left activists disguised as judges. You also have their compatriots, right? Their comrades, the far-left activists disguised as journalists. And for months now, those far-left activists disguised as journalists have been trying to convince their rapidly dwindling audiences that Trump officials are breaking the law. They're defying court orders. They're acting like, ironically, rogue agents. That's actually a term that's used for Trump administration officials, like Kristi Noem. She's a rogue agent. And they appeal to these rulings from their progressive kin, these rogue judges, as evidence of that. So these rulings aren't happening in a vacuum. It's all part of an overall comprehensive left-wing industrial complex made up of the deep state, the judiciary, and the legacy media, who all work in tandem to undermine any populist threat to their power and their affluence. And that is what we're now seeing as the operative principle in the governance of our society. If we could thank Trump for one thing, it would be his blowing the roof off the fact that we are no longer a republic ruled by the rule of law. We are a republic ruled by a political elite whose entire focus and whose entire apparatus for rule is protecting and defending their progressive power and affluence. It's actually known more broadly as progressive realism. It's the belief that the arc of history inevitably bends towards a left-wing vision of social justice. So leftism, progressivism, becomes the ultimate standard of justice and fairness, regardless of what the law says. You got to get that, right? If the assumption, the ideology, and it's a radical one, is that the arc of history is inevitably bending towards the liberal progressive vision of social justice, then the ultimate standard of that justice is not the law. It's progressivism. Under the guise of this governing elite, the law is subservient to a distinctively and increasingly radical left-wing ideology. It's as Marxist as Marxism gets in many ways. That's why criminals are victims and victims are criminals. The standard for social justice is not the law. Frankly, more and more leftists, particularly in academia, are openly declaring that the Constitution is itself racist. You'll see articles like this one saying by, what's his name? William Akeeves, amending a racist constitution. You see, for these elites, their own liberalism, which is another way of just saying themselves, their own narcissistic, woke, leftist progressivism is the standard by which justice and righteousness will now be conducted. As woke leftist progressives, they are absolutely committed to emancipating populations from racist and bigoted systems. That is the ultimate governing principle for our society, not the law, not the rule of law. That, my friends, is the very definition of what a rogue judge is. And liberals are, by definition, all rogue. Their commitment is to an ideology that disparages and casts aspersion on the Constitution and its governance itself. And the grand, glorious, magnificent news today is that it looks like even some of the deepest blue regions in our country, populations have had enough. They've had enough with rogue judges. They have had enough with political systems that operate on the premise of protecting the power and affluence of a ruling elite who govern according to their own values, interests, and concerns rather than the values, interests, and concerns of the people. And they are revolting. They are rising up and they are pushing back. And that is exactly what we just saw in the city of Milwaukee. A jury just rendered a verdict that has the entire legal establishment shaking. The verdict that finally said, truly, nobody is above the law, not even the woman holding the gavel. So let's go back to April 18th. Okay, the setting is the Milwaukee County Courthouse. And the judge is a woman that you see here by the name of Hannah Dugan. She has a very long record of left-wing social justice and pro-immigrant activism. But on that day, a man by the name of Eduardo Flores Ruiz entered her courtroom. He was an illegal alien who had already been deported back in 2013 and had returned to the United States illegally. Now, stop right there. What's that called? What is an illegal re-entry into our nation after deportation called? It is simply called a felony. It is a federal felony under U.S. Code 8, Section 1326. If a person has been deported and returns to the United States without authorization from the Attorney General or Department of Homeland Security, they face federal criminal prosecution. So right there, this guy should have been arrested immediately just entering into Dugan's courtroom. But he wasn't there for that. He wasn't there for that, and he certainly wasn't there for a parking ticket. He was in her courtroom that day facing domestic violence charges. According to witness testimony, Flores Ruiz had allegedly beaten a man and a woman so severely that both had to go to the hospital. The male was reportedly hit over 30 times. Now, these two victims were in the courtroom on that day, terrified, obviously, looking for justice from the American legal system against the man who assaulted them. Instead, they watched the judge turn that system against them. Federal ICE agents were in the hallway. They had a warrant. They were ready to do their job and remove a violent individual from our streets. But Judge Dugan, being the liberal progressive that she is, had other plans. When she found out ICE agents were outside, she didn't just invite them in, she confronted them in the hallway. She told them that their warrant wasn't good enough. And then she sent them on a wild goose chase throughout the building to the Chief Justice's office down the hall. And do you know why she did that? She did that to buy time. While the federal agents were distracted going to the other judge's office, Judge Dugan went back into her courtroom and she physically ushered Flores Ruiz and his attorney through a private back door, what's called a jury door, that led to a non-public hallway. And she literally, in that moment, became a bona fide accomplice in his escape from law enforcement. And keep in mind, he was there facing charges of assault, violent assault. Let this hit you. A judge, a freaking judge, aided and abetted a felon in avoiding law enforcement officers knowingly sending someone accused of violent assault back on the streets. But here's the smoking gun. and this is part of what likely sealed her fate with the jury, there was audio from her courtroom. Prosecutors played that audio for the jury, and on the record, the judge was actually caught saying out loud that she was sick and tired of all this, presumably the Trump administration's enforcement of the law with ICE. She was sick and tired of all these ICE agents, and that she would take the heat for letting this guy escape. She knew exactly what she was doing. She would take the heat. That's not the language of a jurist interpreting the Constitution. That's the language of a radical political activist. And God bless her. If Judge Dugan wants to be a political activist, more power to her. She just has to step down from the judiciary. Because as we noted earlier, if there are no rules, there's no game. If you stop enforcing the law, society by definition crumbles. You have removed the very connective tissue that creates social order in the first place. Fast forward to this week, the trial wrapped up. The defense tried to argue that she was just following protocol. Of course, you all know she was arrested. She was indicted. And the defense just tried to argue, that she was just following protocol. They actually tried to plead ignorance, that she didn't know the specifics of the ICE warrant and the like. The jury, God bless them, didn't even remotely buy it. After just 6 hours of deliberation, they found Judge Hannah Dugan guilty of felony obstruction. She was acquitted on a lesser charge of concealment, but the big one stuck, felony obstruction. A sitting judge is now a convicted felon for trying to thwart federal immigration law. And by the way, how did she take it? How did she receive that decision from the jury? Did she stand tall and defiant like a resistance hero she pretended to be? No. According to reports, she and her lawyers ducked into a side conference room and closed the door to hide from the reporters. I mean, the irony is so rich. The judge who used a back door to help a criminal escape used the side door to escape the shame of her own conviction. She will now be officially banned from ever holding a gavel again. We have gotten one of these rogue judges removed. Felons are disqualified from the judiciary. She's done. Her career is finished. And she faces up to 5 years in prison. And again, we have fellow citizens to thank for this. The Hannah Dugan conviction represents, I believe, a watershed moment in American public consciousness. It really was nothing short of a decisive rejection of judicial activism that has metastasized throughout the entire federal court system. I mean, for years, citizens watched helplessly as judges appointed with ideological agendas issued nationwide injunctions blocking executive orders, rewriting immigration policy from the bench, and subordinating the rule of law to their personal progressive preferences. The Dugan verdict proves that our patience has run out. Again, even in some of the bluest areas of the country. A jury of ordinary Americans, not legal scholars or judicial insiders, looked at the evidence and said unequivocally, you cannot wear a robe and become a lawbreaker. This wasn't a close call. This wasn't a technicality. It was a felony conviction for obstruction delivered swiftly and decisively. And that's not the only good news we're getting in the realm of holding activist judges accountable. This is a story I know a lot of you have been following, and you're going to absolutely love the latest update. Wait until you see this. But first, gang, if you're just joining us, our super chats are up, so feel free to send in your comments and questions. I'll be happy to answer them in our live stream here. Also, this is a good time to remember that every single one of us has to make sure that we take the steps to protect ourselves and our loved ones online. And that actually begins with your home title. Now, if you're a homeowner like me, you got to ask yourself, when was the last time you checked on your home title? Right? That's the legal proof you actually own your house. Well, if you're like me, the answer is never, right? Well, the problem is in today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles and your equity is the target. So here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on one document. They use a fake notary stamp. They pay a small fee with your county, and boom, that's it. Your home title ain't yours no more. It's been transferred out of your name. Then they take out loans using your equity. Some even sell your property, and you won't even know it's happened until months later when you start getting collection notices, foreclosure notices. That's why you need to stop what you're doing right now and find out today if you've already been a victim. Use promo code TurleyTalks at HometitleLock.com to make sure your title is still in your name. You're also going to get a free title history report plus a free 14-day trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. So that's 24/7 monitoring of your title, urgent alerts to any changes. And if fraud should happen, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it. Go to HometitleLock.com right now. Use promo code TurleyTalks. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code TurleyTalks. Now, on the same week, we see Judge Hannah Dugan finally held accountable, convicted of a felony for obstructing federal immigration law. We are simultaneously watching the immigration system actually work exactly as it's supposed to work in another high-profile case. And the contrast could not be starker. Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Many of you know him as the media darling they dubbed a Maryland man or a Maryland father, right? He's an illegal alien from El Salvador whose rap sheet reads like a catalog of everything wrong with sanctuary policies and judicial obstruction. He's an MS-13 gang member. He's a human trafficker. He's a domestic abuser. He's a child predator. He's an illegal alien who fought removal from the United States through every legal maneuver his attorneys could manufacture. Back in August, his legal team filed a motion to reopen his deportation case. Their argument, they actually claimed there were errors in his proceedings. I mean, again, think about it. This is a guy who skirts the law in order to get into the country, but then demands the most fine microscopic reading and application of law in order to try to get him out. It's the ultimate delay tactic, a legal Hail Mary, the kind of thing that makes citizens wonder, does the system that we pay for with our tax dollars, does it actually work to protect us or does it protect the predators? Well, gang, I am happy to report that as this week, an immigration judge rejected the motion completely, totally. The final order of removal now stands. And so here's what happens next. He has another court hearing to determine where he's going to be deported. Remember, he can't go back to his native El Salvador because of a previous Baltimore judicial ruling. So we'll see where he ends up going. It's going to be a third country. They floated Uganda and actually a couple of other countries in Africa that serve as third countries to take in illegal migrants that are being deported. Regardless, wherever he ends up, it will not be here. This is the contrast that America desperately needs to understand right now. When we have judges doing their job, interpreting the law faithfully, not imposing their ideology, not letting their personal politics override their constitutional authority, criminals lose. They lose every time. Justice wins. It wins every time. The system works. But when we have judges like Hannah Dugan deciding that their views on immigration policy matter more than the law, that their sympathy for a defendant matters more than their own oath, the victims lose. The witnesses in the courtroom lose. The real victims lose. The American people lose. For years, we've seen judges twist the law to target political opponents or protect ideological allies. They treated the bench not as a seat of judgment, but as a platform for activism. Dugan's case was just, frankly, the most clumsy, obvious example of a rot that goes deep. Remember, corruption always corrupts. She looked at a violent, illegal alien, a man accused of beating American citizens, and she saw a victim she needed to protect from us, the agents that represent us, federal law enforcement. She looked at the ICE agents, men and women sworn to protect our borders, sitting in that hallway doing their jobs faithfully. And she saw the enemy. This is the grand inversion of the sickness of progressive liberalism. If your ultimate commitment is to liberate, to emancipate populations from supposedly evil systems, inevitably you end up victimizing victimizers. You end up sympathizing with those who show no sympathy to others simply because of the color of their skin or their immigration status or their sexuality or their gender, whatever. You see, the fundamental flaw, the Achilles heel of liberalism, and what liberals just find impossible to comprehend, is that there are some things in this world from which we ought not to be liberated. There are some things in this world from which we ought not to be liberated, like law and order. And why? Why? What did G.K. Chesterton said? What is law and order? Law and order allow good things to run wild. Law and order liberates. Law and order allows us to be truly free. And if you're truly dedicated to freedom, you do not liberate populations from the very institutions that guarantee that freedom. The problem is because they're so ideologically captured, liberals find it incomprehensible that there are institutions and structures inside what they have deemed a racist society from which we ought not to be liberated. Because they see the only source of liberation in the end as themselves. They are both liberation and the liberators. They have such a high vaulted view of themselves that it is impossible for them to see how the world could actually be perceived in very different ways. And that's because in the end, the key characteristic of all of these liberal activists, most especially this Judge Dugan, is that they're all psychopathic narcissists in the end. And I'm not being hyperbolic there. That was the clinical conclusion of the Polish psychologist Andrzej Lobachevsky and his study of what's called ponerology. Ponerology comes from the Greek word poneros, which means evil, right? Political ponerology. And it's not coincidental that the study of political evil for Lobachevsky centered on the study of the political left. That's what he did. He studied European leftists for over 40 years, and he concluded that they were all psychopaths. I'm not making this up. Look it up yourself. Andre, there it is. They put him as Andrew Lobachevsky. It's Andre. Come on now. Keep that European, keep that Slavic sentiment there. Andrzej Lobachevsky and his study of ponerology. He concluded among all the leftists that he studied, particularly Eastern European leftists, they were all narcissistic psychopaths. And by the way, today we have a number of other studies that show that modern leftists are mentally not well, right? You've seen those. There is a literal science behind TBS. Mental illness is at skyrocketing numbers among those who self-identify as political left-wing. And the epitome of this madness is when you've got a judge aid and abet a criminal to evade the very law enforcement she was ordained to uphold. That's not Again, it's not an error of judgment. That is psychopathic. That is insane. She looked at a violent criminal facing battery charges with the freaking victims in the courtroom, and she saw someone she needed to protect. She looked at federal agents trying to enforce the law and saw the enemy. That's psychotic. That's not an error in judgment. That is an inverted worldview. That's a worldview where evil is good and good is evil. And that decision cost her everything. That's the irony, right? Corruption, what? Corruption corrupts. That decision cost her everything. Her career, her freedom potentially, her reputation forever. By contrast, the immigration judge who just ruled on Abrego Garcia's case this week, he looked at the law, he applied it, and let it work. That's the difference between a judge and a judicial activist. That's the difference between the rule of law and the rule of progressivism. Abrego Garcia is going home, just not to America. Judge Dugan is facing prison time. And the American people are finally seeing that accountability isn't just a word, it's a verdict. It's a removal order. It's the system remembering its oath. Over to you guys, over to you. Your turn now. Remember, our super chats are up. So if you have a question or you have a comment or anything, you just want to do a little Christmas cheer here, it'd be my honor to read them and answer them here online. So as our moderator, Micah, assembles all your questions, if you've been wanting to get into the crypto game to escape the fledgling Wall Street globalist system, gang, this is your moment. This is the best opportunity you're ever going to get. If you don't know, the crypto revolution that's happening right now represents the single largest wealth transfer in American history. Over 80,000 new millionaires were created last year because of crypto. 80,000. But of course, the turnoff is its volatility. I get it. The extreme highs are great. The 30, 40, 50% returns. But what about the equally extreme lows, right? Well, guess what? Your experience of that volatility is now officially a thing of the past. Meet Block Trust IRA. They have a super AI system that Bitcoin Magazine has named the #1 crypto technology platform in the world. That's among 1,500 global competitors. And what that super AI does is it works 24/7 to analyze global market data, and it predicts with uncanny accuracy the highs and the lows of crypto volatility. So Block Trust IRA sells at the highs, and then they buy again at the lows. And that mitigates the volatility, all the while you stand to make incredible gains. That's why I am a very proud client of Block Trust IRA. I've got my own account with them. I absolutely love them, and I know you will too. So if you've never gotten into the crypto game yet, let Block Trust IRA ease you in. Click on that link below or visit turleytalkscrypto.com and find out how they can help you join the Trump financial revolution. It's finally giving forgotten Americans access to the greatest crypto wealth opportunity in history. And the best part, for a limited time, they're offering our viewers $2,500 in bonus crypto when you open up an account with them. It's amazing. Don't wait. Give them a call. Give them a visit. TurleyTalksCrypto.com. That's TurleyTalksCrypto.com. All right, Michael, what do we got? What do we got? Question, Dr. Steve, could you comment on Dan Bongino's departure from the FBI, and if it is anything more than him preferring his previous life of podcasting over hot headaches and stress of cleaning up the FBI, any potential replacements? Great question. So as I understand it from what I'm reading from the analysis and the sources that I'm getting, Dan's departure was baked into the cake. This is not there, and you know this, it seems to me, from the lack of any kind of scandalous stories that are coming from the legacy media. They've got nothing to. They've basically got nothing to run with on this. It was baked in the cake. He was always, and you don't go in saying, I'm only going to be here for a few months. You don't do that, so then your enemies wait you out. He went in at the recommendation of Cash to basically clean up the FBI. All those firings, what was 50 plus FBI agents that were fired because they went rogue. They were left-wing activists disguised as FBI agents, but activists rather than agents. They're gone. I know there's more, but a lot of them apparently have been brought to heel, and they just go. Remember, what you have is you generally have a core that moves the agency in a direction. And then you have the followers. You have this mass group of followers. So it's like a pyramid, right? And what Dan was basically commissioned to do was crush the tip of that pyramid so as to free then the followers, it's just basic sociology, to free the followers to now rally around a new move, a new direction, which is MAGA, right? Which is the rule of law, which has taken down the bad guys, and some of the bad guys are obviously on the inside and the like. So as I understand, he accomplished it. He largely accomplished it. And it was a, several month reign, and that's it. He's going back to podcasting. That was always baked into the cake, as I understand it. There was nothing nefarious, nothing problematic here. That was always baked into the cake. So I would love to see Dan back on the independent content creator side of things. Love to get. Now, again, he's not going to be able to divulge that much. You know that. So a lot of this is going to be, classified stuff. But nevertheless, it's going to be great to have him back. I love Dan. I think he's going to be exactly where we need him to be for 2026. I don't know any potential replacements. It's a great question. I'd have to think about that. Paractorius, thank you for the super chat. Finally, I love my home state, Wisconsin. Yes, I'm shocked. Oh, but you came through in 2024. And yes, Dr. C, there are still good liberals and classical progressives out there. We're still here. Don't let the authoritarian neolibs take over. Vance 2028. Absolutely. I make a very, very clear distinction between classical liberalism that sought to implement a society founded on two fundamental premises. Because that's, if you read the literature, the hard part with liberalism is defining it. What the heck is liberalism? Right. And liberals don't necessarily agree. There's all kinds of studies that historically try to abstract the key principles, in this case of classical liberalism. I think modern progressive liberalism, pretty easy to define. It's basically emancipation politics. Very much like what I talked about, where you designate certain groups that you claim were disenfranchised politically over the years by an unjust political and economic system, and then you seek to use that as an excuse to overthrow that political and economic system, so as to, quote, emancipate these groups of people. But in the end, all you're doing is replacing one supposedly oppressive political and economic system with another, right? Soviet Union 101, Venezuela 101, Cuba 101, that kind of thing. Classical liberalism is a little harder. 18th century liberalism is a little harder. But bottom line, it seems to be founded on two fundamental tenets: the use of reason, particularly scientific rationality, common sense in all matters of public policy, and the restraint of executive power so as to maximize individual freedom. So a classical liberal society is supposed to be rational and free. And so, there is still plenty of classical liberals out there fighting the good fight. And I think you see that MAGA is definitely the paradigm, the overall paradigm, nationalist populist civilizationalism, for a revitalization of classical liberalism, since it is a very Western ideal. So, yeah, absolutely. Love it. And congrats on Wisconsin doing the right thing there. Bert, what is the latest on the Canadian businesses closing? Oh, I don't know, Bert. You'd have to give me a little more specific on that. Are you talking about Canadian businesses closing? You'd have to give me more specifics. I'm trying to go. I know there's a lot of tension between Alberta and Ottawa, but nothing's closing in Alberta. If anything, more businesses are opening than ever in Alberta and Sask. And so you'd have to give me more specifics, Bert. The Moral Reform Chronicles. Good morning, Dr. Steve. I have questions of concern. I'd like to get your opinions on it. Is it true that Trump is going to push digital ID? And what is it with him claiming he's the king of the Jews? Oh, I don't know that part, that last part, the king of the Jews. Um, uh, if I'm, I mean, I'm totally being prima facie here. I mean, just at first glance, I think he's considering himself sort of like a Cyrus or something akin to that, uh, um, a a, uh, a Gentile ruler over the Jewish people, as or a benevolent Gentile ruler who rules in accordance with God's law on behalf of the people. I'm assuming that's where he's going with that. Pushing digital ID, I have to catch up on that one too. I don't know about that, and I'm going to have to look at that. It hasn't come across my radar, but you're definitely ahead of the game there. So I wouldn't be able to comment. Look, the good news with Trump is he listens to his base, right? Well, I mean, just look at that speech the other night. That 20-minute speech was all about domestic focus. It was all about showing how there's a new sheriff in town. And now all of the values, interests, concerns of the people that have been ignored and dismissed and degraded over the last 4 years are now being actually implemented, taken seriously and being implemented. So why did he do that? Well, what happened after November 4th and the brutal, embarrassing losses in Virginia and Jersey? Granted, blue states for sure, but we did see a lot of, there was a district in Georgia, there was a state Supreme Court election in Pennsylvania. You had the Prop 50 in California. I mean, we got pretty brutalized in that election. Everything went the way of the Democrats, and the Mamdani candidacy seemed to define it to the extent of its affordability. People just feel Trump is more interested in foreign policy than food prices. So so that for a week, that was what X was exploding over, is that Trump has forgotten MAGA. Trump, or at least the perception is that he's forgotten the promises of MAGA, the promises of America First. And what does he end up doing all that week? He starts talking about affordability. He starts talking about we're going to be 100% domestic agenda focused. The centrality, the working class will be the center point of our entire, literally worldwide policies and initiatives, with protecting jobs, manufacturing overseas, all that sort of stuff. So he listens. So if he's going to start pushing digital ID, I think there's going to be a lot of pushback from MAGA, as there should be. And I think if he were to go there, I think he will pivot very quickly. That's, again, my take on it from not knowing clearly as much as you do. So I'll try to brush myself up on that. Thank you. Brian, my friend, I've been out of the loop this week and have a 3-part question. What is the likelihood that SCOTUS overturns Article 2 of the VRA? Which is the remaining states now that the feckless Indiana Republicans caved? Do you expect to redistrict in time for the midterms? And do you think that will allow us to retain control of the House? Great question. All right. I'd have to get my numbers. So, let me go one and one. So, from what I'm reading, we're going to hear the arguments, as I understand it, in January. If I recall, if I'm getting my cases right, I think we hear their arguments in January for overturning Article 2. But when I'm hearing it from the court watchers is, yes, they're going to overturn it. They may try to, and this is classic Roberts. Roberts may try to overturn it while keeping some parts of it and that kind of stuff. But whatever it is, there is a very optimistic sense that the decision will give the green light, particularly to solid red southern states, to redistrict automatically and use the decision as their basis, as their justification. So it comes down to when they're going to give that decision, right? I mean, because the closer we get to November, the less they're going to be able to do it. Because I mean, you have all kinds of, well, we're supposed to have all kinds of election rules and protocols and so on, with timetables and the like. So, but anyway, according to Politico, that would be another 19 seats. So I would say, we're good to go with that. I mean, you'd have to have a Democrat like plus 10 electorate coming out on election day to overcome something like that. Now, with Indiana, with the Mike Pence Judases in Indiana, they've done polls since then and found 7 in 10 Indiana Republicans wanted him to redistrict. So it was just a middle finger to Trump on behalf of Pence when all said and done. What are the other states? Well, Kansas is set to do it. Ohio is set to do it, and your glorious state of Florida is set to do it. Florida's between 3 to 5. So in my count, I'm giving it 4. Ohio is 2, and Ohio has to do it for some legal reason. And then Kansas will do it. Again, we'll see if the Midwest Republican proves themselves to be the rhinos that they are. And that's what we're finding is, the Thunes and the Pences and so forth are pretty rhino-y. They're pretty horrible guys. So that would be, if we do 4, 6, that would be an extra 7. As I understand it, Cook Political Report, double check me on this, but with California's Prop 50 and Texas factored in, as well as Missouri and North Carolina that have both added 2 more seats together. I believe Cook has us at 213 solid red seats. Again, the amount of, and this, Brian, I mean, the amount of swing districts is just shrinking literally by the hour, just with redistricting and everything like that. I think there's only something akin to like 30 swing seats or not even now. 15, 20, I forget. Seth Keshel has the full count on that. So anyway, if that's the case, 2013, and we net the 2 from our 213, and we net the 2 from Missouri and North Carolina, and if we can pick up 4, 6, 7 more, that should give us over 220. So I am right now. I really am looking at. I'm looking at the midterms from 2 overall dynamics. The first dynamic is the historical precedent, which, as you know, works totally against us. There's only been 3 times the party in White House power, executive power, has actually increased their seats in the midterm. We have none to lose. We can only lose 2 or 3, and we're done. We hit 217. So I'm looking at it from that vantage point, saying everything we say about what's going to happen as midterm has to take that seriously. Number one, but then number 2, I'm looking at it in terms of something we haven't seen before, and that's this mid-decade redistricting that may change the game. It may change our fortunes. It's like, maybe to use a football analogy, you may have a team if it's down by 6 in the fourth quarter. I was just watching it last night, right? I think the Seattle Seahawks, in like 170 games, had not won a single game when they were down by more than 15 in the fourth quarter. So that's what made last night's game so exciting, actually. So I'm seeing it something like that. If after all of these, how many they have been, elections, was it 100 midterm elections in our history, if only 3 have benefited the party in power, well, then when are we looking for to see if there could be a number 4? And I'm looking at, it's kind of like this redistricting is like, I don't know, it's like a massive pass interference penalty of a ball thrown 80 yards and we're like on the 20-yard line in the red zone, and we could win. Normally we wouldn't be able to. Normally we'd be all the way in the back of the field, and the other team would have, or I guess it would be like an interception or something. They're in the red zone. They're in the 10-yard line. They're about to, and somebody from our team catches the ball on the defense and runs all the way to like the other team's 20-yard line. And we've got some plays. We can do something here, and we've got a real chance. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I'm trying to balance that out. But I am really noticing that this is going to be a numbers game more than feel or the vibe is shifted or momentum or whatever. No, this is going to be a numbers game. How much of a plus D Democrat electorate can they get out on election day? Interestingly enough, if we allow, again, it's a numbers game. If we allow the polls in December of the year prior to the midterms, so what's that? That's about 10 months out. If we allow December of the year prior to the midterms, establish the precedent or the pattern, Republicans always are pulled under by about 2 or 3 points. They're always underwater by about 2 or 3 points in the polling. They come out 2 or 3 points better in the November midterm than they were being polled 10 months earlier. And then Democrats generally, if they do better, it's only by a point or two. So right now, it's looking like it's a Democrat +1, +2 electorate, which is not going to be great. Again, they could still pull it off. They can win 219 seats, right? They could be one over, but it's not right now. There's just not a lot of enthusiasm for the Democrats. You saw that recent poll from Quinnipiac at 18% approval. Oh my, it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. So I think independence was 16%, something like that. So anyway, so it's going to be a numbers game. We're going to look at those numbers, and we're just like we did with 2024, and then we're going to try to assess what's the most likely outcome based on those numbers. And redistricting is clearly part of it. Yeah. So there you go. Maximilian, in practical and applicable terms, where does hope come from? Maximilian, my friend, where does hope come from? Good question. Hope. Where does hope come from? Hope is future oriented, right? So faith. So we have faith, hope, and love, right? So faith is trust in the promises and provisions of God of the past. That elicits a trust in what he will do in the future, which is also in Hebrews is referred to as faith. But hope has this sense of you trust that God is going to do in the future what he's already accomplished in the past, and that's supposed to elicit love in the present. So it seems to me hope is rooted in a faith based on what has happened in the past, translated into the future, based on the past it being a proleptic realization, as we call it, a anticipatory realization of what to expect in the future. I mean, the Christmas star is perfect, right? So the Christmas star it goes back, what is it, to Numbers 24 and Balaam, right? Remember the story of Balaam and Balaam's ass? I remember our little kids always used to laugh and snicker when they would read about the old King James version of Balaam's ass and his donkey, if you don't know. But Balaam is a pagan magician who has a prophecy that a star will rise. It was a star will rise in the east, and a scepter will lift up in its wings. And so it was always considered by ancient Jews as a messianic prophecy that this is even Gentiles recognizing that a King of Kings will one day rule the world. Stars are also symbols of rule, hence our 50 stars on on the flag. I actually just did a video on this, on the cosmic significance of the Christmas star for our Insiders Club. So it's really cool. If you guys want to join it, we'd love to have you. We really do some awesome things behind the scenes, just to further our civilizationalist awareness and fellowship and the like. We call them our Turley Talks troublemakers. And so the fulfillment of that is that vision is the Christmas star. So, but if you think about it, I mean, seeing that light is a symbol of hope, goes all the way back to the moment of ultimate light. And that is the moment of creation, where God says, let there be light, right, in Genesis 1:3. And the presence of God is always manifested in light, the Shekinah glory of God, or think of Moses' face radiating with the light of God, or Christ when he transfigures on the Mount Tabor. And then, at the end of it all, in Revelation, where we're told in the new heavens, new earth, there does not need to be a sun or moon, because God himself is the light, right? So this prophecy of this star, rooted in the past, comes forward and is realized in the future in the birth of Christ, the true King of Kings and Lord of Lords, who refers to himself as the light of the world. And that points us forward to that light coming in and flooding the darkness of our cosmos. So my hope in that future, that my hope in the cosmos transfiguring with the same transfigurative light of Christ, every square inch of the cosmos, every strand of DNA in our bodies, so that death is defeated, death is no more. That hope is rooted in this pattern of divine light that I see in the past. And of course, the hope for the resurrection is, if for Jews, ancient Jews, it was just God promising. It was the trust in God's promises, that God is infinitely trustworthy. If that was it, or just it was a recreational hope. So God created the world to be something. We destroyed it in our fall. And so the hope is he's going to recreate it in such a way that life and light abound. But for Christians, our hope of that is actually found in the actual physical anastasis resurrection of Christ from the grave, never to die again, physical resurrection, where the very DNA of his body is transfigured and is above all earthly powers. He cannot be thwarted. He cannot be destroyed in our time-space fallen cosmic experience. And so my hope in that future resurrection is a faith. It is a trust that what God has done in the past, he will do again in the future. So I think you don't have hope without that temporal framework of past, present, and future. And then that enables me to live for today. Thanks, Maximilian. You're the best. Richard Waring, honest question. If riots, work, and terrorism were to start from Michigan, hypothetically, what process could Trump use to deport Dearborn en masse? Right? Yeah, all right. Yeah, Richard, I've looked at that a bit. What can he do? I mean, bottom line, he would invoke the Insurrection Act. I think that is the primary tool that he has at his disposal to quell and to crush, social uprisings. Now it's been invoked several times, but it hasn't been invoked in over 30 years. I think 91 was the last time it was invoked, during the Rodney King riots in LA under George Herbert Walker Bush. But that gives the president basically military powers to turn. Well, it starts with the National Guard. As I understand the Insurrection Act, it does not have to be limited to the National Guard. It can use the whole of the military apparatus to crush the rebellion, as it were. So that's what he would do. And then as part of that, obviously, if there are mass illegals arrested with a secure border that we have now, he would just get rid of them. We wouldn't be paying for them in our prisons. He would just be getting rid of them, probably send them to El Salvador, the super prison down there. And what will you do another book reading and explanation in the new year? So enjoyed The Abolition of Man. Thank you, Dr. Steve. Merry Christmas to you all. And thank you for reminding me of that. I don't know if we can put up, Micah, if we can put up a hyperlink or an address of where people can go. Yes, on Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be doing my annual Christmas Carol reading. What I do is A Christmas Carol is one of the pieces of literature that I studied as a classical teacher, and it is a work rich in conservative and Christian and civilizational frames of reference. It is absolutely mind-blowing. The biblical references all throughout A Christmas Carol will stun you, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through that with you in a special presentation at 7 p.m. This next Monday night on the 22nd. And Mike, maybe at some point you could put a place where people can, oh, look at that, Monday, 7 p.m., Christmas live stream. Yeah, it's totally free. You can come and join. Yeah, but I think they need a link. We'll have to find a link of some kind that people can click on and join. But yes, we will be doing that. Thank you, Anne. And everyone is invited to come on out for that. Rock Dog Buck Rogers. Yeah, didn't he just pass away? What's his name now? I'm forgetting. Will something. Dr. Steve, finally, a leftist activist in a black robe held accountable. That's right. Pigs really do fly. Can we, the people, actually start placing these activists in black robes under citizen arrest for sedition? Good question. I don't know if we can do that. I'm sure Trump would love it. I don't know if we can. Yeah. Oh, and our producer Micah is saying he is going to get you guys that link so that you can join on Monday night. I know we can't do that. I don't think we can. I know it's as wonderful, as mouth frothing as it sounds. No, we can't do that. We just have to let the process play out. But what we have to do is hold everyone in the process accountable. And by God's grace, that Milwaukee jury did just that. Hi, Q. Thank you for the pound sterling. I remember when Chuck said on TV how they put many liberal justices in the district court. The damage they will do to our justice system. Absolutely. Oh my heavens. Yeah. Yeah. And again, for the exact reason I'm talking about there is, you're always going to have a belief system, guiding your actions, right? I mean, this is Jordan Peterson 101. Our value systems prioritize life, so we are able to live accordingly. It's a very, even from a biological evolutional perspective, it's values are there to make sure that you do the right thing at the right time. So if I'm driving my family, to somewhere, my eyes have to be fixed on the road. I can't just be looking around at anything, because we've got zillions and zillions of particulars in our in our cognitive resolution of the world. But something is going to have to guide me to say, nope, you got to look at that road. You don't look at anything else. Why? Because I prioritize the safety of my family over anything else. So we're always going to have some kind of priority system. And that's our value system. And we used to have a value system that prioritized the rule of law. And that's because historically we believe law was discovered, not invented. So that's natural law theory. And it's in all cultures. It's not just a Christian concept, goes in all cultures. And natural law theory basically says that moral obligations are rationally discerned. We can rationally, right, that God created our minds in such a way that we can rationally discern our moral obligations. So that's why a thief will try to rationalize his stealing by saying, "Well, I'm doing it for my kids. My kids are hungry." Right. So we always very few people come out and say, "Yeah, I'm evil and I did it." Now, some will revel in it, right? Like Joker and Batman. I just want to see the world burn. Some will revel in it, but most accused and eventually convicted criminals have a defense, and that defense is rooted in reason. They're trying to find a rational way of justifying whatever they did, or finding a different explanation or what have you. But that's rooted, ironically, in the natural law theory of morality and law, that we, through reason, can figure out, our moral obligations. And then the law codifies, that's why we would call it code, right? The U.S. Code. The law codifies those obligations. Okay. But when you're a liberal, you don't believe that anymore. Liberals believe that all laws are just simply power systems, racist, patriarchal, sexist, phobic power structures that are used to impose oppression on particular groups. And so it's the enlightened liberal. I mean, they are literally kind of like Buddhist in that sense, although they're very attached to the world, right? But they see themselves narcissistically, and I would say psychopathically, as enlightened and chosen, right, and elect to emancipate oppressed groups from racist systems. And so they see the law, they see the Constitution as arbitrary constructs of power that are used to oppress. And so it's only the liberal, in their quest to liberate, that can rewrite law in such a way that reflects that ultimate standard of justice, which is, again, their own form of discovering law rather than creating it, or inventing it, as it were. So it's a mess. And it's liberal societies will always end up a mess. Always. Without it. I look at what's happening in Europe right now. Will always end up a mess. Oh, good. You got the link in the chat. Very, very good. Okay. So to RSVP for our December 22nd Christmas live stream, just click, again, free, you're all invited. Click the link in the chat, and I will be doing a special reading. It's only about a half an hour or so of Charles Dickens' The Christmas Carol, and I'm showing you all the beautiful biblical themes throughout. It'll blow your mind. You'll never, ever watch or read the story again the same way. I promise. I've been doing this for years, and I think you'll love it. Bert, hello, Dr. Steve. On your reading Monday, what parts of the carol are you highlighting again? Well, okay. You want me to give you a little bit of a taste of it, huh? The big thing with the Christmas Carol for me that really kind of frames it is the motif of death. And you got to get that. That'll be the first thing I talk about in there. It's the motif of death. And if you think about it, that's crazy. Why would a story that's centered, right? It's literally called A Christmas Carol, a Christmas song, right? Why would a title that celebrates a birth focus on death? Why on earth would it? How does that make any sense? And death stalks the book. I mean, it begins with Jacob Marley's death, and he literally says Jacob Marley was dead, and you've got to get that, otherwise nothing else is going to make sense in the story. Jacob Marley was dead, and that's for sure. Dead as a doornail. I think that's one of the sources we got for that phrase, is dead as a doornail. I don't know what's particularly dead about a doornail. It's a wonderful. I mean, it's just got the most amazing dialogue in there. So we'll be focusing on how death ends up relating to birth all throughout the story, and the way, and I'll give it away. I'll give it away without giving it away. Right? It's the way that Dickens conflates Christmas with Easter that makes the story mind blowing. We'll look at the child. The children are a very important motif all throughout. In many ways, children save Ebenezer. Ebenezer, we find out, ends up becoming jaded as a child because of the rejection of love, the rejection of his father. And so Ebenezer is a very human character. I mean, he's wonderful. He's described as a corpse, by a walking corpse, a cold, hard, crooked nose, chin, so he's wonderfully descriptive in the story, but he's also incredibly human as the story goes on. What else? I mean, there is that Revelation passage. I was just talking about past, present, and future. So in Revelation chapter 4, the book of Revelation, if I recall, it's chapter 4. These are the things that were, that are, and that are yet to come. Tolkien used that. Dante used that. And Dickens drew from that as well, again, to bring the totality of cosmic time to bear on what's happening to Ebenezer. So those are just some of the themes that we get into. But there's some real, like, very overt biblical scenes that he replays in there. In many ways, Jacob Marley is a retelling of the rich man and Lazarus parable by Christ, where the rich man dies and he wants to come back and warn his brothers about what will happen to them if they don't repent of their wicked ways, as it were. And in the story, they're not allowed to. In the parable that Christ tells, they're not allowed to. What Dickens does is, again, this is the beauty of what opens up in literature. He asks the question, in effect, what happens if he was allowed to? What would have happened? And so that's Jacob Marley. Jacob Marley is allowed, and he even says, I have procured your deliverance. I've implored on your behalf for me to come and visit you, to get you to turn and repent, so that what happens to what happened to me doesn't happen to you and all. So it's amazing story. Oh, and we'll talk about meals, banquets all throughout the story as well, which is a precursor to the Messianic banquet. Troublemaker, good morning, Dr. Steve. With the death of the Brown and MIT shooter, faux news is stating that the professor was murdered due to jealousy of his success. What, if any, motives have been promulgated on the shootings of Brown? Can we assume that may have been something to do with the politics of those involved? Do we have any confirmation of political bend on those murders? Yeah, Troublemaker. I looked at it right before this live stream because I was sure somebody would be asking it, and Troublemaker was you. And they just didn't have any. They didn't have any details on it in terms of motive or why he did it, or if the two shootings. It does look like the two shootings were the shooting at Brown in Rhode Island, and then the shooting at MIT were connected. It looks like it's the same person, but we don't know. We don't know why they scrubbed this all the social media profiling of the profiles of that pro-Palestinian activists. I mean, it was one of the most bizarrely, comically inept, incompetent police investigations I think we've ever seen. And again, it just shows that liberalism always ends up corroding social order. James, imagine how popular the Democrats would be if they cared for their voters as much as illegals or their pocketbooks. It's true, and it's happening. Even Harry Enton is having to admit, CNN is having to admit, Democrats have never pulled lower. The latest Quinnipiac, I think the prior Quinnipiac poll had them at 19%. Now they're down at 18% or 17%. Or, I mean, they're just going down. They're a disaster party, and I think for exactly those reasons. They're on the wrong side of an 80-20 doom loop. They keep staking their positions in the most unpopular political issues of the day. Upshoot. Good to hear from you, my friend. Thank you for the euro. The EU decided to break their own rules and take on debts together to help Ukraine, which is not even part of the EU. We definitely need prayers. Amen. Amen. Well, I don't know if you saw Upshoot. I don't know if you saw President Trump's new national security strategy released just a couple of weeks ago. But they made it clear that the emphasis now, the focus now of of Washington, D.C. will be for national security and international relations will be the Western Hemisphere. That is going to be our focus. And it's not going to be fighting foreign wars anymore or anything like that. But as part of that national security, they believe they have to basically rid the world of the EU. And so they are going to make an effort over these next 3 years. And I think JD is going to win in a landslide at this point for sure. So we could say about at least the next 7 years. They're going to make it there. And JD has been very clear, right, to European leaders what he thinks of them, standing up for the European people like yourself. They've made it very clear they are going to help and promote and work with what they call the patriot parties all throughout Europe. So of course the media is like, oh, they're trying to bolster the far right. I mean, these media folk don't even know what a woman is, and they're calling us extremists. It's just absurd. But yeah, no, yeah, Europe, the jury's still out on Europe. I mean, the specter of the two wars and the post-World War II world and the emergence of the liberal international order and the role that that Brussels played in that it's just made them addicted to that world. They can't see a civilizationalist world. Although Macron's been using that term a lot lately, and of course he's calling it the European civilization from a Brussels-based perspective. But yeah, they're just enamored with their liberal administrative state, and they can't think of a system outside of it. Any other system, particularly nationalism, patriotism, localism, they just see as precursor to another war nonsense. So I'm with you, EP Shoe. Well, there is some good stuff there that's happening, but it is incredibly frustrating. Again, the good news is the trajectory is moving in a direction. When you compare where the nationalist populist parties in Europe are today, where they were 20 years ago, right? Like in 2005, I mean, it's night and day, absolutely night and day. If I recall, in 2005, only about 3%, 5% of the EU had nationalist populist parties as the European Parliament members. Now it's upwards of 30%. So, I mean, you're just growing by leaps and bounds. You'll continue to grow, but yeah, the question is how much damage in the meantime. Willow Tool for a family making $200 to $300K. Will the Trump tax be reflective in lower taxes for this group? Despite the large sum of monies, many families in this bracket still suffer from taxes, right? Rent and or mortgage household budgets and disposable income being less. As I understand it, it's a pretty across the board tax cut. I don't know the specifics of thresholds. I should, and I don't. You're catching me flat-footed there. But you're absolutely right. Someone making 200, 300 grand living in Manhattan is living in a studio apartment. Someone making 200, 300 grand living in what? Salt Lake City is living in a 5-bedroom, 3-acre home. So, and then so to give the latter the tax cut and, keep taxes confiscatory for the formers just doesn't make sense. Again, it's one of the reasons why I'm a huge advocate of tariffs replacing income taxes, because I think income taxes by their nature are both unfair in just the way they're distributed, and also they're politicized, particularly by the left. With their tax the rich nonsense, while they get richer on the tax dollars. That's where we find out they tax the rich. But let's see. Hold on. We got Oh, okay. Yes, yes. Micah wanted me to mention that William won a Turley Talks tumbler in our weekly giveaway. Was that from that was from last Monday night? We did a drawing. We like to give away some swag and stuff on Monday night. So William, you were the one who won it. What did you have to type? I forgot what you had to type. Was it Vance 2028? Something like that. I forgot what you guys had to answer. Merry Christmas 2025. Okay. So anyway, William, congrats. You get your tumbler. It'll be on its way to you. Weak and wimpy. I asked this too late on your last live stream months ago. You were so optimistic about winning the House, but now you seem less optimistic. Now I'm worried. Okay, what changed? All right. Well, all right. No, 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 I'm not pessimistic. Or no, I like how you put it. Less optimistic. That's legit. That's legit. So, okay. So months ago, we were redistricting. There was no Prop 50 yet. Dems were in a polling freefall. They were in an 80-20 doom loop. Trump was literally winning everything. And I was reading article after article after article on left-wing outlets. I read a lot of left-wing outlets. I was reading article after article, like salon.com. Basically, the world is over. We've lost our country. It's never coming again. So what we have to do now is we have to resist. We have to try to destabilize this authoritarian dictatorship. And I said, we won. This is it. They're not winning. They're not coming back to power for like the foreseeable future. This is it. With the redistricting, we're going to be able to overcome the historical disadvantage that the party in power always has in midterms. I mean, again, even Reagan lost seats in 82 and 86 in his two midterms. So, we're going to be able to overcome that with the redistricting and with the Democrats literally falling apart right in front of us. What's changed? November changed it. November changed. And we did have, in fairness, we had Rich Barris and Mark Mitchell. They're often called doomers and kind of dismissed, but they were a bit of canaries in the coal mine. And what they found starting in July was that Trump's poll numbers started to go down among a very particular part of his coalition, not his whole coalition. Remember, the Trump coalition is a very complex coalition. It's basically the Obama coalition of white, non-white working class, Latino voters, and Gen Z men, together with establishment Republicans, traditional Fox News watching Republicans. So if you put that in a pie chart, that left side of the pie chart, the Obama wing, who are basically populists, they felt very let down by Obama. That Obama wing started to lose its patience with Trump. Not as a whole, but you started to see the numbers go down, specifically with them after the Iran bombing. The Iran bombing, for recalls, in June. And again, always remember, this channel tries to be, and I think why you come to this channel a lot, and what I try to do for you, very deliberate. This channel is descriptive. We cheerlead descriptive accounts of what's really happening, as long as it's moving in a MAGA direction, which we believe it is because of an overall historical trajectory that I've shared with you, that I refer to as civilizational realism. But we believe the world is moving in a particular kind of direction, whether it should or not. Now, we're glad it is moving that direction, but we are descriptive, not prescriptive. A lot of influencers are prescriptive. Here's what I think ought to happen. This is what we need to do. This is, should women vote? No, I don't think women should vote. That kind of stuff. Okay. I don't get into any of that. I'm analyzing what's happening, what's really happening. Because to me, the trajectories are exciting enough, given the civilizational populist dynamic. What's really happening is so. Make sure you understand what I'm saying. I'm not saying we should not have bombed Iran. I'm not saying that. I'm saying here's what happened after we did. Okay, I'm being descriptive, not prescriptive. So descriptively, what happened is that portion, that disaffected independent populist, sort of Obama portion of the Trump coalition, started to see him more as George Bush 2.0. They got very nervous with that. Oh, here we go. Here's another war in the Middle East. And then the Epstein files fiasco, when I that might have even come before. I'm forgetting my timeline there. But those were the two moments that we started to see the disaffected independent populace, the low prop to no prop voter who doesn't come out and vote for any of the parties because they find them both pathetic. That's when we started to see those voters, but they do come out and vote for Trump because they finally feel like they have a champion, somebody who listens to them. Those are the voters that started to lose confidence in Trump. And when November happened, November 4th, where we thought we were neck and neck with what's her name, Mikey, whatever, in Jersey, and we knew Winsome Sears was not going to win Virginia because Glenn Youngkin screwed that whole thing up, not allowing for some kind of primary. So he handpicked her and destroyed the Republican Party. That's what Steve Bannon thinks, and I think Bannon is right. But we thought we were at least going to be competitive in Jersey, and when she ended up winning by double or triple what Murphy had won by back in 2021, even although we matched and exceeded Murphy's vote total, Jack Ciattarelli did by 100,000 or so. We exceeded his vote. We had 100,000 more votes than we needed to have won in 2021. But then she got hundreds and hundreds of thousands. She got 3x, 4x that. And that's what told me. And Jack Ciattarelli didn't get to within the range that Trump would have gotten, because if he'd gotten Trump's vote numbers, vote share of November 2024, he would have won. He would have beaten Mikey Sherrill. He would have beaten her. And the argument that pollsters like Mitchell and Barris were making is that's because those disaffected independent populists did not show up. That's because they didn't show up. And they didn't show up because if they lose confidence in Trump, how much more they get to lose confidence in a party they don't already trust. So that's what made me concerned. And that made a lot of people concerned. Okay. Now some people find some of these guys these pollsters a little caustic in the way they present their findings and so on. Fine. That's, no problem. But I think they were canaries in the coal mine, recognizing all the way back last summer that there was some drop in support for Trump among his base. And then it seemed that we saw that drop in action in November. And there's got to be something dramatic for Trump to do to re-energize that portion of the base, because he's got to do a twofold move. He's got to re-energize them to join him again, to say, yeah, I love Trump. No, he's doing a great job. But then he's got to transfer that trust to the GOP, which is hard because they suck. The GOP, as you know, just sucks. It is an absolutely incoherent, dysfunctional party it's just this multi-headed monster made up of all these different competing factions. You got your libertarians, you got your rhinos, you got your neocons, you got your MAGA, you got your establishment figures that just go with the way. I mean, they're insane. Half of them want to increase spending, half of them want to cut it, half of them want to fund this project, half of them want to fund that project. I mean, they're just whereas at least the Democrats all just want power. They're all united in power. We want to tax you and we want to regulate you. And they're absolutely, whereas the Republicans are they're a chimera. They're unlike things stuck together. So there's so much to hate with the Republicans. You got Florida Republicans are amazing, and you got Indiana Republicans who should forever live underground in shame, and everything in between. And I just think it's going to be a tall order to get the Republicans to win purely on momentum, purely on trust in Trump, and just getting that huge coalition of Trump out to vote en masse for the Republicans. So the two saving graces there for me, well, actually three, is one, the Democrats continue to be very unpopular. So that would lend itself to more momentum on our side politically. Two, Trump has pivoted to the domestic side of things big time, as we saw in the speech, which is what he needed to do. And then three, and we even released the Epstein files and the like. And then three, the redistricting, the mid-decade redistricting. That's going to work well in our favor thus far. I mean, because they know how to. One thing parties know how to do is they know how to draw districts that favor the party. They know how to gerrymander in partisan fashion for sure. So there you go. That's will give you a full orbed sense of where I am with that right now. Mitchell, do you think Trump would get rid of Pam Bondi due to her not prosecuting anybody? Could it also be that prosecutors have not been confirmed by the Senate? Unsure of what to think of it. Yeah. So, right now, Trump appears to still have a lot of confidence in Bondi. There are apparently a lot of things in the pikes, in the works, in terms of indictments. I think they're walking a thin, fine line between, how do I want to put it? Between appeasing the base that wants perp walks, but also appeasing the general population that still to this day is very nervous about seeing public officials arrested. It just reeks of third world banana republic stuff. Remember, Trump's polls went up after the Mar-a-Lago raid, up 10 points, if I recall. So I think they're trying to balance a fine line to bring these people to justice and thereby satisfying this hunger and thirst for justice among the MAGA base, but also trying to balance out the overall political perception that he's trying to take down his political opponents. And I think, just by him and Bondi being somewhat cautious and careful, and they have indicted, John Bolton just got indicted on how many felonies on all counts by a grand jury. Comey's been indicted. They indicted Letitia James, although that got thrown out. But we're starting to see these indictments coming, and we'll just have to see over the course of the year. But so far, right now, it looks like Trump still has confidence in her. Jesse, my husband and I are conservative same-sex. What's conservative? My husband and I think just say, maybe just spelled wrong. Okay. My husband and I are conservative same-sex Baptist couple in Texas. Why does the GOP not aim for gays tired of the left? What do you mean by aim? Because that's a good question. Let me think about it. Let me chew on that just a little bit here, because because the reason why I'm thinking, so what I'm seeing in the MAGA movement. Okay, let me back up here. All right, what I'm seeing in the MAGA movement is a tech trad alliance that brings Silicon Valley together with social conservatives. That is an approximation to what Guillaume Faye called an archaeo-future society, where the society blends together renewed civilizational religious sentiment with hardcore, vibrant technological industry and advance. So what we used to sort of separate science and religion, you create this wall between science and religion, or or state and church or whatever. That wall is gone. That wall's basically died. And it's populism that's basically killed it. And it's two strands of populism: civilizationalist populism and techno-populism. And the two have come together in order to push back against wokeness and liberal insanity, or how you put it. You get tired of this insane leftism. But what that has done is it's recreated a new right, as we call it, a new conservatism, a techno traditionalist conservatism that transcends the old binaries. Okay, if you're gay, you're on the left, and if you're hetero, you're on the right. And here's the traditional family structure, and here's the new alternative family structure, and here your politics belongs with the Democrats, and here your politics belongs with the Republicans. That's gone. In populism, that falls apart, because populism redefines the divide away from a horizontal left and right divide to a vertical divide, people versus the political class. And so if you're part of the people and you find disdain for this horrible, woke, progressive political class, well, then we're on the same side, right? So in the world of MAGA, what do you got? I mean, not to say like, look at all my non-white friends, right? But I mean, just some of the representatives, right? You got Doug Murray, gay man, married. You got Scott Bessent, one of the most powerful men on the planet, gay man, married. You got Rich Grinnell, who just helped rename the Kennedy Center the Trump Kennedy Center. Pretty cool. Gay man, married. And all of these fellows have they're just like you, very Christian or Christian leanings. I know Doug Murray has been, I think Jordan Peterson helped him seeing that more and more. Peter Thiel from Silicon Valley. I mean, we could go on and on and on, so the MAGA movement it has social conservatives, it has social libertarians, it has traditionalist family values, it has more, shall we say, alternative, maybe you could call it futurist family values, and it brings it all together in this civilizational techno-populist, social world. So I say that because I don't know if but I don't want to, because you would know better than I, obviously. So I don't want to push back on, but there's a sense of, I thought they were, and maybe I'm wrong. So I thought MAGA was making it very clear. I mean, JD was business partners with Peter Thiel, right? Who's, again, gay man, married. I don't know if they have children, but I mean, and so what's JD? He's a traditionalist Catholic, right? With a techno futurist, and they come together, and Peter Thiel is also brilliant in his understanding of classical philosophy and the like. So I just thought they were, I guess you're catching me a little off guard with that. Are they overt with it? Probably not. Right. Yeah. I'm not seeing like overt, like, gays for Trump kind of publicity, maybe in smaller circles. But I just thought, Jesse, there was an intuitive sense. Maybe I'm wrong. I'd love to chat with you more on this, actually, because what you're saying is very interesting to me. Especially from like this tech trad archaeofuture perspective, where sort of the old binaries just don't play anymore. I'd be curious. I thought that civilizationalism just kind of created an intuitive sense that this is my new home now. Wokeness is insane. Wokeness is actually trying to literally, make gay males go extinct. It seems to me, if they have gender confusion as children. So young men would be basically castrated as part of gender reassignment surgery, rather than just let them go through the phase and continue to develop and hopefully in a healthy and flourishing way. So I guess I just felt that civilizationalist populism and techno-populism were just the natural home for anybody who is just sane, who wants strong borders, strong economy, and a strong, like you say, a conservative culture. But that nevertheless, like you're talking about Baptists in Texas that want a conservative culture, but but it's not conservative in the 1980s definition of it or the 1950s definition of it. It's conservative in that it's realizing a broader definition of conservatism, and in family lifestyles and so forth. But while at the same time maintaining a robust commitment to traditional family and fertility and so on that comes from conservative religious observance. So anyway, I to me that's kind of the difference. I mean, you're even seeing it. You're even seeing it, as I understand, in Dubai and places like that that are considered archaeo-future. Certainly seeing it in Japan. They don't have gay marriage in Japan, but my wife is from Japan, so I spent a lot of time there. But it's part of the hierarchical society of Japan. You find it's very inclusive, and you just have to find for lack of a better term, your place in the hierarchy. You have to find your place in society, and then they allow for it. It's just but you can't go beyond that place. But that's for everything. That's for women. That's for people with certain last names in this feudal system. I mean, it's for everything, right? But if you have that, then you're able to do whatever you want. You can flourish however you want in that lifestyle. And I just think there's a lot of archaeo-future visions where people who are do we even see LGBT? I don't even we use the T anymore. Well, whatever. But people who are in more this LGBT community or what have you are feeling just much more at home than they would have in a conservative movement, say in the 1980s. And in fairness, it would, because we were horizontal politics, left versus right. So I just thought it was intuitive. I thought you didn't have to necessarily come out and no pun intended, right? Come out and say, we're gays for Trump kind of stuff. But, but again, to me, that is archaeofuturism. To me, that is tech trad. That is the Trump coalition. And so if you think that would be good for the future of the movement, then by all means, let's continue to chat about that. I honestly thought, with all of the very openly gay representation in the Trump administration and among commentators like Doug Murray, or among the members of the Tech Trad Alliance that you see with someone like Peter Thiel, that it was intuitive, and it was just like, well, yeah, why do I want to be with these left-wing nuts? I don't care about identity politics. I want a safe border. I want a strong economy, and I want a flourishing civic order. I don't want any of this nonsense. So anyway, there you go. That's kind of my 2 cents on it. Great, Jesse. We should chat more about that. It's very fascinating. Jack, hi, Dr. Steve. It's your friend Jack for Canada. Jack, we were just talking. My wife and I were just talking about you. What was it the other night? Oh, we were talking about the Northern Lights, and we're talking about the wonderful Canadian whiskey that you got for me. So, Jack, we were just talking about you literally like 48 hours ago. So maybe your ears were tickling there. I'm all in for Alberta's independence. I want a divorce from Toradum and Automorica. I love it. I've never heard of that. Automorica. Any news on the next Turley cruise? God bless you. No news on the next Turley cruise. We'll have to find that out. We've been doing, my business partner's actually been doing some traveling a bit internationally in Southeast Asia, which has been pretty cool. We've got some neat stuff going on out there. Let's see. Yeah, I see. I hear you, Micah. Mike, our producer, was also mentioning Scott Pressler as well as another openly gay fellow, very, very pro-Trump. And yeah, so it would be interesting to talk with Scott in terms of his get out the vote campaigns, of how to be more welcoming to the gay community, to be brought into this archaeo-future vision for MAGA, which MAGA is a particularly American version of MAGA. So no, nothing on the next Turley cruise, but you will be the first to know, Jack. We love you. Jack's just a good friend to the channel. We've met several times. He was with us at the inauguration. Just a wonderful patriot from way up north, way up in the Great White North. And so it's great seeing you. And yeah. I mean, I've been keeping abreast of what's going on with Alberta's independence, and I haven't seen anything new yet to report. So hopefully something will happen there. Franz, if conservatives could win a national election, would they need to be part of a coalition? And what happens when the undeserved come with what happens with the undeserved come the midterms? What happens with the underserved come the midterms? Win a national election. Conservative. Are you asking for Europe? Is this a European parliamentary? I mean, or Canada. So, because we're a few years off from that, unfortunately. Well, a couple of years, right? Aren't hung parliaments usually last about 2 years? Well, no. If you win a majority, you don't need a coalition. As long as you keep your members in line, you've got your 50% plus one. But no, if not, you do have to have a coalition. In Italy, you need at least 40%, and so if you have your 42, 43%, that's it. You don't need an outright majority to pass legislation in the Italian parliament. What happens with the underserved come the midterms? I don't know if I understand the nature of that question. What are the underserved? You'd have to explain. I couldn't tell, Franz. UP shoot. Is it possible to rewatch your reading? Oh, that's true. It's 1 a.m. in Germany. Yeah, at 7 p.m. Of course it is. Yes, Micah said yes. There will be a way to rewatch the reading, the replay in the portal. Are you? I don't know if UP is a member of the Insiders Club. Click on the link, and there may be a way for you to get it, even if you're not a member. But I don't know. The joke around here is if ever I touch a calendar, a puppy dies. So if ever I talk about logistics here, it's always a disaster. So Willow Tool, off topic, your favorite version of A Christmas Carol. Mine, and I am serious, is Mr. Magoo's. Oh yeah, I haven't seen Magoo's in a while. I have to check that out. Oh, there's so many of them, so good. The classic is Alistair Sims. That's so if you look at movie reviewers, cultural critics, the consensus gathers around the 1951 Alistair Sims version, because he just did such an amazing job making Scrooge a very sympathetic character. Most other portrayals of him, rightly so, by the way, portray like the Albert Finney 1970 musical Scrooge, which is brilliant, very lavish, glorious color. But they make him, he's all contorted, his mouth is like, so he looks like a corpse, and that's good. That's the way the story is. But the way Alistair Sims wanted to portray him was as a very sympathetic character who had been brutally hurt, and that the survival mechanism, I guess, to try to cope with that pain is he ended up losing touch with love, and it's love that melts his heart all throughout. And again, it's very true to the story, but he wanted that as a character focus from the beginning. Now, I've seen the Alistair Sims. Obviously, it's not my favorite. I like it; it's good, but it's hardly my favorite. My favorite is Patrick Stewart's TNT, if I recall. It's a 1990s version, and it's just beautifully done. And Patrick Stewart, it was an adaptation of his solo Broadway theater performance. So he did all the characters. I never saw it. I'd love to see it, but he did all the characters live on stage. But then he played Scrooge for the TNT version, and it is brilliant. I mean, again, I've lived with the actual text for so long, and it is the truest version to the actual text that I've seen, and the performances are excellent. You'll see several actors that you know from other movies. They really did an excellent job with that. So I would recommend that one. I'd have to go and revisit Mr. Magoo's. Actually, the Muppet version with what's his name, Kane, is excellent as well. It's very, very good. He does a great job, and it's received well among critics. Deonra, Indiana GOP needs a good house cleaning. Amen to that. Yeah, unfortunately, Midwest Republicans are pretty milquetoast. They're pretty lazy. They're not like red state Republicans in the South. That's where you've been seeing the massive left UG crisis. So people have been moving to Arizona, Texas, Tennessee, North Carolina, Florida, and they've just made those states like deep, deep red because they're like Gandalf's, you shall not pass. They will not let the demon of the far left ever come anywhere near them again. Midwest hasn't had that. They haven't had the left UG influx. So they don't have a lot of like new converts, hardcore rightists who are there to defend the fort, as it were, from left-wing onslaught. Remember, Indiana did go blue in 2008. They voted, to their everlasting shame, they voted for Obama. So anyway, there you go. It's just, they're a disappointment in every way possible. Franz, with characters like Adelson and Dershowitz in close proximity to the White House, is the conservative wing still in denial about the Zionist influence? No. I mean, so again, it's coming down to the different factions within the Trumpian coalition, because the pro-Israeli faction is a very important one. It's a very prominent one in the coalition, as it's been for Republicans for decades, as it's been for Democrats as well, right? I mean, what John Mearsheimer calls the Jewish lobby is the best financed, best organized, and most effective international lobby in Washington, D.C., bar none. They've got both parties, more or less compliant with what they want to see. Now, there's been a massive disruption of that within the Democrat Party with the pro-Palestinian activists, the pro-Palestinian progressives. So the more pro-Israeli liberals are finding themselves disaffected, and they've taken leave of that party, and they've joined the Republican Party. In many ways, Alan Dershowitz would be one of them. So they're a part of the coalition. Do they exercise the inordinate influence that the other side, the more, again, disaffected, independent, populist wing, exercises? That remains to be seen. Some would say, obviously, I mean, Tucker clearly is on that side, that they basically control our internet, or at least our Middle Eastern policy. Candace, of course, is going all the way with that. For me, it's just hard. For me, there's clear influence, as there has always been, but whether that influence is as powerful and all pervasive as critics claim it to be, I haven't quite seen that evidence. Clear, no question, the bombing of Iran was in response to that influence. But it was an influence, but the bombing of Iran had justification beyond simply what Bibi Netanyahu wanted. It went way beyond that. This goes all the way back to our personal gripe with Tehran back to 1979. So, you gotta watch. This is what I mean. You gotta have a big picture lens here. You gotta have a wide resolution lens. Yeah, definitely. Zionist influence, definitely. To what extent? I don't know. Is it the extent that some of the critics claim it is over the Trump coalition? I don't know. I don't know about that. Sandiford, as an Iowa Trump voter, I can confirm this is a rhino preserve. Send help. It is. It's unfortunate because Iowa's so populist. I mean, you voted blue for decades. You voted for Dukakis, for heaven's sakes. It was a populist enclave. Somehow the rhinos took over. Yeah, I think it's an influx from Ohio, to be honest with you. Something like that. Influx from Ohio, influx from Wisconsin. I don't know. And that's that, gang. All right. So remember, you see it down below. Click on the link below, RSVP for my December 22nd Christmas live stream. The link is in the chat below. And can't wait to see you guys there. It's free. And we're going to do a Christmas carol. And we're going to count down to the most magical, wonderful moment of the year. And of course, as always, like and subscribe. And for breaking news and analysis, you're not going to hear anywhere else. Love you guys. God bless.